This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Tonight, it is your chance to get loud as this playoff series shifts to Nationwide Arena for games 3 and 4. The Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins tied at one game apiece coming in. Welcome to CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. What a big show I've got for you today. Going to take a couple different angles. This is the Great Scott Show today. That's what I'm going to call it, the Great Scott Show, because I've got two guests later on. They're both Scots. One is former Blue Jacket Scott Hartnell, who's now doing work for NHL Network. Have him talk about this team, because he knows so many guys on this team, about the playoff experience, which he has plenty of from his playing days. So we'll hear from him. And Scott Burnside, who covers the NHL nationally for The Athletic, is also going to join me to talk about the series and about what's going on in the NHL. Not much going on last night, only one game in the National Hockey League, as the games are a little bit staggered now. Of course, the Blue Jackets and the Bruins had the extra day off, so that's the way it's going right now. That left one game on the schedule last night. Dallas and St. Louis continued their series, and they went to Dallas, and it was St. Louis that got the win on the road. 4-3 was the final, and now the Blues lead that series 2-1. In addition to the Blue Jackets game tonight, you've got the Sharks and the Avalanche continuing their series. That one is also tied at one game apiece. So lots of stuff going on. But I mentioned Brandon Dubinsky. The comments that he made about Nationwide Arena being louder than the TD Garden in Boston, that was right after the game on Saturday night, and it was a thing of beauty. It was Brandon Dubinsky at his finest. This is a guy that understands the playoffs. This is the guy that understands playing in the playoffs against a team like the Boston Bruins, a team that has a guy like Brad Marchand on one side who will just continually find a way to get under the skin of not only the guys that he's playing against, but also the fans of the team that he's playing against. That's what Brad Marchand does so well. I've said it before, I'll say it again. He's a guy that you would love to have as a teammate, you hate to play against. It's as simple as that, because of what he does both on and off the ice. But Brandon Dubinsky, he's got some of that in him as well. And even though his role has not been as large as Brad Marchand, I mean, Marchand is playing on the top line of the Boston Bruins. Brandon Dubinsky is playing on the fourth line of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This has been a season where Dubinsky has been asked to take a lesser role. He has not only taken that role, he has embraced that role. He's actually turned it into a bigger role at the end of the regular season and into the playoffs. He has definitely done that. There's no question about it. And what he has done has been good for this team. I think it's been good for him as well. But Brandon Dubinsky knows from his days with the New York Rangers what it's like to play in New York and in Philly and in Boston, and the little tiny things that you can do that just add flavor to a series. He knows all about it. And don't be fooled in thinking that anything he does is a mistake, because even if he says it is, I don't believe him for a second. I don't believe him at all. Case in point, yesterday, he shows up after practice to do his media interviews wearing a Milwaukee Bucks ball cap. Now, why would he wear a Milwaukee Bucks ball cap? Of all teams, I mean, this is the guy that, yes, he loves the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL, so he'll come out wearing a Chiefs hat. Or he'll come out wearing, some Major League Baseball team hat. I'm not necessarily surprised by him wearing a hat of a different team, but it was the team that he wore the hat of. It's the team that just so happens to be playing against the Boston Celtics in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Is that a coincidence? Is that a coincidence? He's going to be filmed doing these interviews. This interview is going to go all over the world. It's certainly going to be aired in New England. And he's wearing that hat. Is that a coincidence? Well, Brandon was asked about that while he was being interviewed yesterday.
You know what? I went to Milwaukee. I got family from Milwaukee, so I went to a Milwaukee game not too long ago and picked up the hat. So I just like the hat. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he has family in Milwaukee or not. I'll take that part to be true, I guess. As far as the rest of it, well, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you at a really cheap rate. Or I've got, as George Strait once said, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona. Anyway, It is the gamesmanship around the game, and I love it. And I think it is just a throwback. It is old-time hockey. It's exactly what it is. It's old-time hockey. This series is like old-time hockey with the hitting. Now, not with the fighting, but with the hitting and the way everybody's finishing their checks, the way everybody wants to impose a little bit of physical play on everybody else. They do. We've seen it in the first two games. We're going to see it for as long as this series lasts. I'll tell you that right now. But this part is old-time hockey, too. This part, the gamesmanship. All the stuff that goes on around the game. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Because for all the people that I know that I hear complain about Brad Marchand, I guarantee you there are those in Boston that ever since Saturday night have been complaining about Brandon Dubinsky. And probably saying, who is this guy? He's a fourth-line winger / centerman, and who does he think he is? Well, he's a pretty experienced guy, and as I said, he knows the Northeast. He knows the fans. He knows the passion. He knows how to get under your skin. He does. And this is where I really give him credit. He's not doing it at the Boston Bruins. He's not stepping on people's sticks. He's not, giving them an extra shot in the corner. Well, maybe he's doing that. But he's doing it very subtle. He's being very subtle about it. And it's more directed at the fan base than it is the players on the other side. So I don't mind it at all. I like it. I think it's funny. I think it's good for the game. I think it's good for this franchise. This goes back to, remember last summer when Jack Johnson signed with the Penguins, and you know all the stuff that happened there. And if you don't, I'll tell you right now. Jack Johnson signs. His quote was, I've wanted to be a part of a winning culture. He had been healthy scratched in the playoffs the year before. Jim Rutherford, the Penguins GM, came out and he said, well, I know why he was scratched. It had nothing to do with performance. And John Tortorella went off. John Tortorella just ripped into Rutherford, saying that, a GM of another team should keep his nose out of the business of this team. Went off on Jack Johnson about playing in a winning culture for a team that had just gone to the playoffs in back-to-back years. He stood up. He defended the organization. He defended the city. And I think it was a huge thing for this franchise in this town. It doesn't always go over the greatest. I mean, this is the Midwest. This isn't always WWE here. You know what I mean? It's always kind of he didn't mean that. He was saying it in a nice way. Tort said, screw that. Stand up for yourself. I'll stand up for you. I'll stand up for us. And he did. And, by the way, as a side note, if Jack Johnson wasn't scratched in the playoffs last year because of his performance, if that's not what it was, then I wonder why the Penguins scratched him in the playoffs this year in the brief time they were in them. Again, side note, another discussion for another day. But anyway, to continue, wherever I was. Brandon Dubinsky, in a much more subtle way, is doing the same thing. When he says that Columbus will be louder than Boston, that's a shot across the bow. Because that gets under the skin of the Boston people. They take offense to those kind of things. And he knows it. And that's what makes it funny. And that's what makes it fun. And that's what makes it the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's what makes that. Go back to the days of the Columbus Chill or the Columbus Owls or the minor league old-time hockey things. You think there wasn't gamesmanship that went on behind the scenes? You think there wasn't stuff going on to get under the skin of even the other fan bases? They were much smaller in regards, and all your interviews didn't go out everywhere across the world. All but people knew. People knew. So it's just a throwback. It's all a throwback. It's all fun. And tonight we go back to playing the games. So tonight the focus comes back to the ice, where it should be, and then you've got to go out and put your money where your mouth is. And you've got to go out and try to get a win. Try to take a 2-1 lead in this best-of-7 series. Somebody's going to have it by the end of the night. Which team is it going to be? The home team or the visiting team? That's the question. Bruins yesterday were shuffling their lines a little bit. David Pastrnak has dropped down to the third line in practice yesterday with Charlie Coyle and Marcus Johansson. They're trying to get Pasternak going. He is he came off the top line with Bergeron. He went to the second line with Krejci. Still not getting production out of him, so they move him to the third line. And I don't see that so much as a demotion for him. I see that as them trying to get some better matchups with the maybe the third defensive pairing of the Blue Jackets. Now, as far as the Blue Jackets lineup, Wenberg went in on Saturday. Texier didn't play for the final half of the third period and didn't play at all in overtime. I discussed those things yesterday when you sent me your questions for the Monday mailbag. Well, today there's a little bit further explanation. Not much, but Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella talked about both of those guys yesterday when he met with the media. I'll let you hear some of that as we continue with CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. 7 o'clock tonight, Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins, Game 3 of their Eastern Conference semifinal playoff series at Nationwide Arena. All the fun gets started at 4 o'clock when the Plaza Party kicks off outside the arena. There will be entertainment, there will be food, there will be screens outside as well. If you don't have a ticket to the game, you could come and just hang out and watch the game right outside the arena, still be a part of the Arena District experience for the game tonight. So make sure that you consider that if you're not coming to the game. If you do want to come to the game, bluejackets.com/tickets, you can try that. I don't know how many are left. I don't know why there would be a single one left, but maybe there is. So you can go online and try to find out about that. Our pregame coverage starts at 6 o'clock tonight on the Blue Jackets Radio Network. And as I said, the game gets underway at 7 o'clock. So big night. It's a huge night. And I know everybody's excited about playoff hockey returning again because the first go-around in the first round of this against Tampa was terrific. The atmosphere in the two games, it was unbelievable. It was outstanding. And you need to make the Boston Bruins experience that tonight. They'll be looking to make you quiet and shut you up. But you can't let it happen. You just can't let it happen. You know, one thing I really liked about the first round when Tampa was here, even when the Lightning scored, during the regular season, the other team scores, and it just drops to an inaudible level, right? And it kind of stays that way until the team gets it going again and brings their next chance. In the playoffs, it was completely different in the first round because you were quiet when the other team scored, and then immediately were right back on your feet by the time the puck was being dropped for the faceoff. And I thought that energy was incredible. The players fed off of it, and that's what they need. And I know that's what you're going to bring. I'm just reminding you to bring exactly what you already have packed in your bag for tonight. I want to tell you about Ohio Credit Union and the great folks over there that take care of your financial needs. They make sure that your money is put in the right place, that you're getting the best return, or as they say, getting the best bang for your buck, literally, right? Okay, they've got personal services, they've got business services, whatever it is. Maybe you've got a small business, and there are some things that you're looking to do, and you don't know where the right place to do it is or who the right people to work with are. Well, the people at Ohio Credit Union are the people, hands down, because they have just gone above and beyond for over 80 years, since 1934. They don't even think about it being extraordinary what they do. They just think about it as being their job, as being your partner when it comes to dealing with your money. You can find out all about the services that they have, whether it's for your personal needs or your business needs, by going to telhio.org. You just surf around the website or click the live chat option, and you can talk with somebody right then and there. Also, you can stop by any of their local offices. Ohio Credit Union is open to everyone in central and southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. Blue Jackets and the Bruins tonight. Alexander Wenberg drew into the lineup on Saturday. He had been out for quite some time. He took the spot of Ryan DeZingle, who was a healthy scratch. And Alexander Texier didn't play after committing an egregious turnover in the third period that led to a great scoring chance for the Boston Bruins, one that was snuffed out by Sergei Bobrovsky, fortunately. But Texier didn't play the rest of the third. He didn't play any of the overtime minutes that the Blue Jackets went through the other night. So both of those players were talked about yesterday when John Tortorella met with the media right after practice.
Wenberg, what do you like about his penalty kill, and how can that help him in his 5-on-5 play, which you've had issue with this year?
Well, Wendy's a smart player. He's good positionally, has a good stick, had a couple of good sticks the other night. I'm not sure if it helps his 5-on-5 play. He's going to have to help his 5-on-5 play. But he certainly gave us some very important minutes especially in a crucial part of that game the other night after the 4-on-4 goal, and then we had to kill the penalties off. So that was really important for us.
John, when Texier was in Finland, his coaches would say one of the best qualities about him was when they had to bench him, he didn't pout. He just bounced right back, understood what he did wrong. This is the first time I think you kind of sat him there late in the game. Today seemed just normal. He understands why he had to come out.
Yeah, he's fine.
Follow up on Wenberg. Obviously, he's had his struggles. Can you get into it all? The process by which you've tried to get the most out of him?
No, I'm not going to talk about that now.
On Texier again, he didn't play the last 36 and a half minutes of that game. Is this series a little too much for him at his age and his experience? Or
No. I at that time, I just wanted to do different things with the lines.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like, give him a break. Give him a break. It was getting pretty rich for him there. And I'm not saying not to play him tonight. Don't get me wrong. I think that this young man has just grabbed onto everything that he's been asked to do. I think he's going to get better and better as it goes along. I think he needs to learn to deal with this. No question about it. I mean, this could be, if the Blue Jackets can get through this, this could be the toughest playoff series that he plays in. And what I mean is literally the toughest, the most physical, the most, he played in Finland. Yes, he played amongst men. He was a 19-year-old playing amongst much older guys and all that stuff. That's great. But are they pounding him there like the Boston Bruins are here? Absolutely not. The Tampa Bay Lightning barely touched him. Didn't come after him in that kind of a way. The Boston Bruins see a weak link. The Boston Bruins see a 19-year-old kid who has yet to deal with this kind of play that they can throw off his game. That's what they see. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And that's exactly what they should do. So it got a little bit rich for him in Game 2 at a certain point. But there's no reason he can't come back out tonight and start the game and take better care of the puck. He's a very confident player. Very confident. He's, I've said it before, he walks that line between confidence and cockiness, which I think you have to do. And you especially have to do it if you're 19 years old coming into the NHL and playing in a playoff series. This isn't the beginning of the year. This isn't October playing against whoever. It doesn't matter. Pick your team. The Minnesota Wild. This isn't a November game playing against the Vancouver Canucks. This is the end of April against the Boston Bruins in round 2, and let's be completely and utterly honest about this. Every team that's left in the playoffs feels that they can win the Stanley Cup. You look at the field that remains and you say, who's the favorite? And the answer is probably the Boston Bruins or the San Jose Sharks. But with all of that being said, the other teams that are playing all feel that they can beat either one of those teams. And everybody's correct. It is wide open. It is a crapshoot right now. And if you get on a roll and you get hot, you've got a chance to win it. Everybody knows it. And the Boston Bruins know it. And they don't want Texier to be a part of it. They want to shut him down. They don't want some 19-year-old kid that they forgot about to all of a sudden be a big factor in the series. And that's something he can do. And again, they know it. And they at least want to take that part out of the equation. I'm going to bring in some experts as we continue here. Scott Burnside, who covers the NHL overall for The Athletic, is going to join me in just a bit. But coming up next, I'm going to hear from a guy that just retired as a player, and now he's coming into the broadcast business, doing some work on NHL Network, as a matter of fact, and that's former Blue Jacket Scott Hartnell, as we continue with CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. Well, tonight it is Game 3 of this best-of-7 series of Blue Jackets. And the Boston Bruins are all tied at 1 game apiece. If you're coming out to the game tonight, and if you already have tickets and you don't know about the VIP parties, you need to know about them. There are 2 of them. There's the Great Lakes party and there's the High Bank VIP party. They both have private areas. You get into the arena early before everybody else. You get to be in a private area, and your food and drink is all-inclusive. Now, that's tough to beat, is it not? Sure is. Want to find out more, go to bluejackets.com/playoff parties, and you can find out all about that. Our guest hotline, which is being brought to you by your Greater Columbus Kia dealers in the new 2019 Kia Sorento. Conquer your mountain. We do have Scott Hartnell on the line. Good morning, Scotty. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. How are things going?
Well, they're not going too bad, right? I mean, you've been in the playoffs before. You know the excitement when you get to the second round, and the people in Columbus are going to experience that for the first time tonight.
I know, right? You realize the 16 started, now there's only 8, and your chances of winning are better. And, I can just imagine that building is just going to blow its roof off tonight, and just so excited for the guys. Got a lot of good friends there, and hoping, they can get this game 3.
All right, before we talk about that, I want to talk about you, a guy that goes from newly retired. Actually, you got a lot of new things. Newly retired, really a new dad, and now a new broadcaster moving into the field. And I've seen you doing your work on NHL Network, which, by the way, you're doing a great job there. And I can't wait until you're fully comfortable and you just let the whole personality out. That's going to be a great day. But what's it been like for you making the transition?
Well, number one, I got a little boy that I'm looking after now, and he was born, I think, about a week after we lost out in the playoffs with Nashville last year. So he's been keeping me busy. But yeah, the TV stuff, the analyzing, it's interesting. It's you look at it from a different perspective. Obviously I've watched a lot of CBJ games and Nashville games and a lot of Philadelphia throughout the year. Just those 3 teams, in particular, just because I have a connection with. And just to learn how to, speak on air. And like you said, your personality come out. The first time I went on, I was so nervous, and, I couldn't even, get a couple sentences out with, with the pauses and the ums. So anyways, I'm just trying to work on that. And like you said, I feel a little bit more comfortable now, just being there, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen times. So it's been amazing.
It's funny. Now, look, I do this for a living, and I know you from working with you when you were a player, so I know that personality. And the same happened when Jody Shelley started working with me. I kind of laughed a little bit just watching the nervousness because I never saw you guys being nervous at what you were doing when you were playing the game. So it was just kind of funny that now, I don't get nervous when I do what I do, but you guys are doing what I do and you get nervous. If I were to go on the ice, I would be really, really nervous. But it just kind of makes me chuckle, and because I know what you are, and I know what you're going to be, and like I told you, I'm really looking forward to it because I think you've done a great job in the couple of shows I've seen you do already.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. It's funny, Game 6, we're in overtime, the Stanley Cup Finals with the Flyers, and, you don't even think twice about what you're doing out there, and the whole world's watching, right? And, you get in front of a couple cameras, and you got to, kind of speak what you already know, and just trying to get the words out. It's just different, right? And everyone's told me, you told me, Bob, when we spoke earlier this season, is that the more reps you do, the more comfortable you feel, and things will just be a lot more natural. So I'm just looking forward to where it actually does just feel kind of like I've been doing this all my life, and hopefully sooner than later.
Oh, absolutely. I guarantee it'll come. Talking to Scott Hartnell. He is doing some work with the NHL Network now that he's retired as a player in the National Hockey League. Scott, you mentioned you've still got a lot of friends on this Blue Jackets team. So let me start with this. Knowing the personalities, knowing the people behind the scenes and who these guys are off the ice, are you surprised that this team has caught fire and is doing what it's doing right now?
No, it's amazing. You got to have everything go right at the right time. And Bob's playing his best hockey, one of the hardest working, nicest guys, in the net. You go, right through their defense, with Jonesy and Z leading the way, and, obviously Captain Nick and, Cam and, the guys who got the trade deadline. So it's so exciting to see these guys, kind of battle through. Everyone's accepted their roles. Doobie is, probably the biggest example of that, a guy that was playing, 17, 20 minutes a night, and now he's playing, 5-8 minutes and winning every draw. And that's what you need to have success. So these guys have kind of just all came together, accepted the roles, and they're playing hard, and just how fast they are in the pucks, how fast they are on the back checks, how they lay their bodies on the line. It's unreal just how awesome they're doing, and there's no surprise here.
Brandon Dubinsky, who you just mentioned about the lesser role that he has taken, I think this is a credit to him. He has taken that lesser role and actually expanded it into a bigger role here in the playoffs, more minutes, more responsibility. In Brandon Dubinsky, I don't have to tell you because, you've played with him, you played against him. He's a playoff-built kind of a player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's so hard. He wins all those battles down low. He's great at getting the pucks out. A guy that, played for John Tortorella beforehand, so he knows that he's got to lay his body on the line. And, a guy that you want out there in the last minute with a lead, winning a draw in the defensive zone. And he's just an incredible guy, too, off the ice. He's got a great personality. If you know him and, playing against him, you hate his guts. But and definitely we went at it playing against him. But being his teammate, he's a guy that you want to, go through a wall for.
Talking with Scott Hartnell, the former Blue Jacket, and you brought up John Tortorella. In the time that you played for Torts, there were some times where he healthy scratched you. There were other times that he gave you all the responsibility in the world. He always talked about the fact that he loved that you were a throwback player and all of those things. To watch Torts and what he's doing right now with his team and how he has them so bought in to what's going on, does it surprise you at all, or is this another kind of what we just talked about with Dubinsky? John Tortorella is a guy that knows how to get a team going in the playoffs.
He does, and I think it started, a few years ago when he came in and, to totally change the mindset of, kind of how the team was run, how it's a team first team. It's not individual success. It's, obviously you need to have your individuals doing their things, but he bought into, all the guys have bought into that, we got to win together and no one's above the team, right? And they've had a bunch of meetings this year with, the whole Bob thing and Panarin thing and the trades and, Yarmo, next thing he's trading these two guys, but he doesn't, and he brings in, a couple big fellas and was the big shooter come trade deadline. So, I don't know, Torts has got everyone kind of, 100%. He's got everyone dialed in. He's got everyone on the same page, and it's probably taken a couple of years to get all that kind of stuff, and everyone's just having the best time of their life. You win a round, the confidence gets up, your swagger, and they're just going at the Boston Bruins. They're not waiting to see how they're playing.
You've been on the ice at Nationwide Arena in front of a full house. You've been there for big games. It's going to be electric tonight. You mentioned that earlier in our conversation here, but what's it going to be like for those guys, do you think, tonight when they hit the ice, and how do you channel that energy the right way as a player?
Well, you don't want to overhit. I don't think you want to go out of your way to make a big hit to get the crowd going. So, I think Boston, they got a bunch of veteran players over there that, kind of know how to take the crowd out of it. So I think you just got to be just mindful to start the first 5 minutes, not to overdo things or over-try things. But, they play the way they've been playing, and their power play's been hot, and it's exciting hockey to watch this time of year.
Scotty, thanks so much. It's great to catch up with you. Continued best of luck in the work you're doing on NHL Network, and I hope we can touch base again.
Thanks again, Robert. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Scott. Scott Hartnell, former Blue Jacket and NHL Network analyst now, joining me on today's show. Coming up next, Scott Burnside. He covers the NHL for The Athletic, and we'll chat about the playoffs as we continue with CBJ 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. It all starts at 4 o'clock this afternoon outside of Nationwide Arena with a plaza party. Game is at 7 o'clock tonight. Pre-game coverage on the Blue Jackets Radio Network begins at 6 o'clock this evening. And, hey, if you are at the arena, make sure you stop by the Tim Hortons, which is located at Nationwide Arena, because when you come into that store and buy a Stinger donut, Tim Hortons will donate $1 to the Blue Jackets Foundation. So, again, that is at the Tim Hortons, that is at Nationwide Arena. Make sure you stop by and get one of those Stinger donuts. I'm Bob McElligott. This is CBJ 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. I'm joined right now by Scott Burnside. He covers the NHL for The Athletic. And, Scott, how are you? What have you been up to?
I'm doing well, Bob. I'm sad you haven't written, you haven't called, and here we are. We're already almost three games into the second round.
Okay, well, I can go the same way. I've seen Pierre LeBrun twice already at two different series. I have yet to see you. Where you been?
I know. Well, I've been manning the ship here at home and doing some writing from the comfort of my basement. I'll tell you, I've watched every single playoff game this spring, and I feel all wrung out. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, geez, I feel worn out. I haven't done anything, in terms of the travel, in terms of playing, obviously, but I can't imagine there's been a more dynamic first round and a little bit in my playoff memory. I don't know about yours, but it's been dynamic. And this series, the Columbus-Boston series, is as advertised. I think a lot of us were wondering, what will we see in terms of energy and intensity from Columbus given their layoff, and what was Boston going to have left in the emotional tank after a 7-game set with arch rival Toronto. And both teams, outside maybe a little bit of rust early on for Columbus, but both teams have delivered the goods in 2 absolutely dramatic, dynamic games to start the series in Boston.
Yeah, they sure have. What do you think about this extra day of rest? How much does this help Boston, who came off a 7-game series with Toronto and then 2 days later had to go right into it with the Blue Jackets?
Yeah, I guess in theory it gives the Bruins maybe a little bit more of an edge. If you had to compare the two teams in terms of their fatigue factor. But when you come off those 2 games, and especially game 2, going deep into double overtime, what did Seth Jones play, 38 minutes? I don't know that there's a distinct advantage. David Pastrnak obviously is dealing with something for the Bruins. Does the extra day help him in terms of whether it's an injury or whether it's just, getting back into a groove? Maybe it helps him. I think both teams take advantage of an extra day off in the schedule. As a reporter, that's the worst thing ever, to have the extra day between games, but to fill in the time. But I'm not sure there's a real benefit now that we're sort of in the meat of the series. And if there is an advantage, maybe it's slight towards the Bruins, given the fact that they've now played 9 games compared to the 6 that Columbus has played. But I would say it's a negligible advantage if it's one at all.
You talk about for a reporter the extra day that you're trying to fill. They didn't get it any easier yesterday here because I thought John Tortorella was the consummate short answer guy in his media availability yesterday. And it was funny because somebody said to me, "Well, he's not in a great mood today." No, no, he wasn't. It was, and Torts well enough that I think you get to so many of these media availabilities on a day like yesterday, you're like, do I have to do this again?
Well, and it's part of the rhythm, right? If you are in the normal rhythm, if you play day off, your off day media is maybe it's more rehashing of the game before and looking ahead to whether it's lineup decisions or, tactical things that you might want to change based on the outcome. That extra day does throw things into a bit of a tizzy because he would have had to, it does upset the rhythm a little bit, and I'm sure a guy like John right now wants this team to stay very much in the moment, very much in the groove. I thought they did a nice job. I think it was predictable. First half of game 1, they didn't look like the Blue Jackets we'd seen in the first round, and Boston looked like a team that was still just chugging along after dispatching the Leafs in an emotional game 7 at home. So I was impressed with how quickly they got around to it. I thought by the end of game 1 that they were giving as good as they got in terms of the Blue Jackets. And then, much the same in game 2. And I think that's what this series is about. Punch, counter punch. Both teams had opportunities. Both teams had stretches where they were the dominant team or looked like they were going to take over the game. But Sergei Bobrovsky and Tuukka Rask have been unbelievable. And that's what you expect at this time of the playoffs. This is going to be a series, I think. And again, the longer it goes, I think it benefits Columbus, just based on, assuming that there aren't injuries that crop up or they aren't serious ones. I think this benefits Columbus the longer this goes. If this pace and the physicality keeps up, it really is a heavyweight match, and it's been fun to watch, that's for sure.
Talking with Scott Burnside, he covers the entire NHL for The Athletic. He and Pierre LeBrun also do a good podcast, The Two-Man Advantage for The Athletic. Scott, is it almost unthinkable that there is a possibility that when both of the conference finals come, it could be all wildcard teams?
Yes, it is a little bit mind-boggling to think of that. I remember, you go back to 2010, and Philadelphia and Montreal were the 7-8 seed, and they played in the conference final in the East, and ultimately Philadelphia went on to lose to Chicago in Patrick Kane's overtime winner in Philadelphia in Game 6. But to have the possibility that all 4 of your conference finalists could be your wild card teams. I talked to an NHL executive recently who said, Gary Bettman must be rubbing his hands with glee at this notion that we talk about parity. We know that the hard cap was introduced in large part to control costs for all the owners, so that there wasn't a giant disparity between the haves and the have-nots in terms of revenue, in terms of money, and a byproduct of that, and whether you like it or not. I mean, there's lots of arguments on both sides of it, but the fact is that when you have a playoff year where it could be that 4 wildcard teams will be the final 4 teams standing, it speaks to that the importance of the 82-game schedule and getting your foot in the door, and it tells you just how narrow the gap is between the very best teams in the NHL and then those who are maybe struggling and inclined to get into the playoffs, and no one knows that better than the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I think it's again, you can debate whether parity is a good thing or not, but it is real, and it has never been more real than it is this spring.
Scott, thank you so much for being on with me today. I appreciate it. I promise to call and write more often.
I'm going to hold you to that, Bob, anytime.
All right, thank you. Scott Burnside, he covers the NHL for The Athletic, and that is going to do it for today's show. Quite the big show, right? The Great Scott Show. Scott Hartnell, Scott Burnside, and tonight it's the Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins, Game 3, 7 o'clock at Nationwide Arena. We've got pregame coverage starting at 6 tonight on the Blue Jackets Radio Network. Also find it on the Blue Jackets app at bluejackets.com. Sirius XM Radio, the NHL Radio Tonight, Channel 91 is where you can find it. That's going to do it for me, Bob McElligott. Until later on, I say so long.